In the words of Hubert H. Humphrey, freedom is hammered out on the anvil of discussion, dissent, and debate. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to Tech Vivad, a platform for young minds to discuss, debate, and engage on real-world challenges that have arisen due to the accelerated growth of technology in every aspect of human life. The competition consists of 2 rounds, a set of group discussion followed by a parliamentary debate. The group discussions will be judged on the criteria, including participants' knowledge of the topic and command over the language. It is mandatory for all participants to turn on their cameras. The maximum time for each group discussion will be 15 minutes. 6 participants from each discussion round will be selected and split into 2 teams that will participate in the parliamentary debate or the Tech Vivad finale. On that note, I would like to invite Vinayak, Vice President, CSI Bennett University, to introduce the judges for today. Over to you, Vinayak.
Hello, everyone. First of all, welcome to Tech Vivad. It's an amazing competition, and we're glad you all are here. Debating is a very important skill, a very important art form to be precise, which has been there ever since the evolution of mankind. And today we will practice it. And we also have 3 judges amongst us who will be judging you guys. And these are the best people around. First, we have all of them are actually our mentors at CSI. And first, we have Mr. Prateek Sisodia, who worked with CSI for a period of 4 years at UPS Dehradun, where he did his bachelor's. And he organized the first ever 48-hour hackathon in Uttarakhand. He is specialist in cloud architecture and site reliability. And apart from that, he has organized and has been a part of multiple debates and MUNs across India. We also have Manthan Gupta with us, who is our direct senior, and he works as a full-time researcher at Portal. And he is, being very honest, he's probably one of the best. He's probably the best developer there is in our college. He works in Flutter and has achieved a lot in it. And he was also a mentor for TensorFlow organization in Google Code in 2019. And the third judge with us is M. Vineet, who was our former president. And he's basically the Ranchor Das Chanchar of our college. He scored 10 CGPA in the last 3 semesters. And apart from that, he has done a lot of research work in machine learning and data science, and is also the teaching assistant of the course in AI and ML, along with being a 3rd year student. So that's that. And apart from that, we have an amazing competition lined ahead of us. And I would also like to congratulate Udayan and Dhruv for pulling this off and bringing these people so far. And best of luck, guys. Debate nicely, respect each other, and yeah, have a good time. That's the most important thing.
Thank you, Vinayak. I would now like to invite Kalindi, President, CSI Bennett University, to address the gathering and declare the event open. Over to you, Kalindi.
Good evening, everyone. I feel delighted to have all of you here, that is, the judges, the participants, and the CSI team. So, before declaring the event open, I will tell you about a short game which is known as 9 dots. In this game, you have to connect those 9 dots without lifting your pencil. The only way to do that is going out of the box. This is what our event Tech Vivad aims at: thinking out of the box, understand the different interpretations, and express your views. It's the battle of wit and words. The one to best express will be the winner of the event. Thus, I declare the event open. May the best and right one win. Thank you.
I'll also read out the topic once. Should there be any public or legal control over the deployment of technology? While the participants prepare for the first group discussion, I would like to invite the judges to motivate the participants and encourage them.
So I guess first of all, I think since the topic is being given on the spot, so I would just simply say that just think for a few seconds before speaking. And actually, whenever you're going for a debate, it's not compulsory that always you have to speak. You have to actually listen to what the others are speaking, and accordingly you have to set the flow in a right direction. So the main important thing will be you have to listen first and formulate what you have to say, because the time that you have been allotted is less. So actually formulate the things and just try to keep the things as crisp and short as possible. So I guess all the best, all the very best to everyone. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Vineet. I would now like to invite Mr. Manthan to say a few words for the participants.
Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay, so I would say that your topic has been given just 10 minutes. Like you have 10 minutes to prepare and respect others. When someone else is speaking, please don't cut him or her in between, and listen to their points, and keep it crisp and short. And it's not about saying as long as you can, but but saying things which make sense. So yeah, all the best.
Thank you, Mr. Manthan. Mr. Prakrit.
Yeah. So hi everyone. I hope you can hear me. And first of all, I'd like to wish all the participants the best of luck. And just like one advice I'd like to give you, that if you're using facts in any kind of group discussion, be sure that you're factually correct, because you never want that if you are stating a fact or you're stating any statement, and and if by any chance there is any shortcoming in that, any fact is incomplete, that it might be used against you. So just keep that in mind. And yes, the time, you just got 10 minutes to prepare, so just jot down your points and try to stick to them and to the best of your ability. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prakrit. Let us begin this group discussion. The participants for the first group discussion are as follows: Lakshya Gupta, Anthony Jose Anthony, Ojaswa Chirag, and Shreya Mukherjee. I, Udyan Sharma, will be moderating this discussion and expect you to maintain the decorum of this event and respect your fellow participants. Any use of foul language shall lead to immediate disqualification from the event without any notice. As you are well aware of the topic, should there be any legal or public control over the deployment of technology? Let us begin with Ojaswa.
Before that, I had a query. Are there any other rules that are to be followed regarding the group discussion?
It is a general group discussion. There are certain criteria like of the topic, how well you use the information provided by other people, and how well you are able to communicate with others. There are several criteria on which the judges would be judging you. Okay. So let us begin the discussion. Ojaswa, please go ahead.
Right. Moving back to 2018, when we saw the very first movement towards regulation, when Brad Smith from Microsoft took the unprecedented decision of requesting the government to start regulating facial recognition technology. Ever since then, we have seen that this issue had been taken up by the United Nations and various international forums, as well as within the bounds of various countries, especially in the case of China, Japan, and some other major tech countries. That said, the regulation of facial recognition did not take place in certain nations, as we can see in the Hong Kong protests that took place in China. Now, this brings to mind one of the major issues that is taking place in the world as of right now, which is when it comes to the freeloading of technology. Technology has been used as the basis for a lot of crime, be it in the frame of generalized cybercrime or be it technology-aided crime.
So my take on this, to begin with, the deployment of technology, in other words, its usage is one that enables in a plethora of things being achieved. Yet I believe that we live in a day and age where it may not be used, practiced, or even applied for that matter in the most ethical and in the most moral of ways, which may either be due to the lack of guidelines, effective monitoring, and proof checking or regulation. There are various reasons as to why this exists. Again, technology has a broad scope of application, which is of high necessity, especially since it allows us humans to expand upon what we already know, which means our pre-existing knowledge, and understand whatever it may be to a greater depth. And starting off with something as simple as research being conducted through the means of technology, traveling all the way to technology actually being applied for the purpose of innovation as well as invention, the list goes on and on. However, it is vital for there to be regular regulation as well as monitoring from the government side. And this is because the use of technology, whether it be every single day or whether we're using it for something extraordinary, such as inventing something, it can very easily slip up and lead to the exploitation of it all, especially for a group of people who may not possess all the tools required in order to utilize it to the most effective of ways. And hence, a lack of holistic knowledge is where there may be the repercussion of us using technology in a detrimental way and its entire purpose not being achieved to the fullest. And tech, again, as we know, helps in solving the most critical of problems that humanity is faced with and makes it simpler for us to approach the issue at hand as well as tackle those problems on a daily basis. This again expands to a range of fields, starting from healthcare all the way to agriculture as well as education for that matter, which is how we're all connected. But government regulation is what will enable in the drawing of a line between humanity as well as technology. And this is what will help in differentiating use and abuse. And this being taken onto a public level will not only provide for there to be a well-rounded knowledge around the concept of technology, but also will make society aware of the many repercussions of any false acts or misuse or exploitation. Whereas something that exists at the very polar opposite end of this take on it would be that the concept of technology itself is one that allows for there to be flexibility in our learning. So beyond this, the internet being open to one and all is what truly gives way to everyone benefiting from the simplest of ways in which technology exists. And again, it also enables in accountability and restores trust and knowledge if we were to enable the government in regulating it on a daily basis. But that again has a catch, which is that we won't be providing enough flexibility around the concept. Yeah, that's
a really good point that Ms. Shreya has raised is regarding education. Yes, we're all connected by the concept of education because this is an intra-college event, right, organized by the CSI of our educational university. Now, the fact remains that when it comes to education, once again, we have the various ups and downs of regulation that might take place. When we consider the positives of technology, why regulation should not be taking place is because if regulation was to take place, a lot of resources that are quite helpful in this field of education, be it in the form of free softwares or be it in the form of certain softwares that are made available to said institutions, would also be brought into question a lot on the basis of their privacy policies or perhaps on the basis of what their what the guidelines within the within said tool might be. That said, there are also, of course, a lot of benefits when it comes to the regulation because in the name of educational institutions, there exist the chances that there might be a lot of malicious work going on, be it in the collection of data in unethical manner and usage of such data in a situation that might not be considered appropriate, be it in the form of the leakage of certain private. So,
just 1 second. Lakshay and Anthony, why aren't you contributing to this discussion? It's a group discussion. You should just speak up. Please don't raise your hand. You should just speak up.
So are we allowed to cut off the person while they're stating a
Yeah,
point?
definitely. It's a discussion. It's a
Okay, so
discussion.
that's all I wanted to know. So just you just said that it's as malicious as it gets when it comes to leaking of privacy, right? I mean, like imagine, sir, like I'm allowed to raise questions as ethical as it gets. Can I? Udayan Sharma, sir? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So just are you comfortable in sharing the names of the 5 people that you have recently chatted with? Because I'm not personally. Take it for example, the leakage of ideas. I can assure you that we have absolutely no scope in discussing things in an online platform, be it Instagram, WhatsApp, maybe Telegram. They say it's end-to-end encrypted, but they don't state that as a ASCE military decryption. So how, to what end can you promise privacy being safeguarded from a user and by the admin?
So that's a very good point that you have raised, that yes, the privacy violations, as I mentioned, are one of the major issues when it comes to technology. But once again, this is where the concept of controlled regulation is to be considered. Like there needs to be the provision that yes, the privacy needs to be confirmed, that there might not be any leaks, that there might not be data siphoning or anything of that sort. But at the same time, it can't happen that the regulation goes too far, that it ends up infringing upon the privacy just in the name of protection. For example, if we were to consider an example of, say, Sweden, when one of the main political activists was under the guise of protection put under house arrest, and the person's rights were infringed upon. Now this is of course just a physical example, but this can also happen in the form of technology, when the government says that by the way of protecting a person's digital rights, they look into a person's chats to find out if this person might be conducting certain acts the acts that are unethical or
Oh, just,
against the law, or some
just
kind of situation.
sorry to interrupt you, but I would like to say that as when we talk about the constitution also, there are certain, we have been given rights, but there are certain reasonable restriction. That's what come with the technology. Here you are talking about some person related to Sweden. Sorry, I didn't paid attention toward it. But according to me, if we are living in a world where there are lots of people with different ideologies, different likes and dislikes, so that's what here comes. That's what comes with the technology. We have to also protect the right of the people. We have to also protect that the country lives in a peaceful way, in a peaceful manner. There is no violence in a country, and leaders like these, which actually uses the not factual information, and actually manipulates the mind of people by using the false information. They actually present the false information, and due to all these kind of stuff, the riots happen, the violence happen, and this creates this leads to the unorganized world, which no one actually deemed, which no one actually wants. So according to me, yeah, the technology should be regulated. That's what it is. As our rights are regulated, the deployment of technology should also be regulated, because the best and the regulated way of technology actually gives us both. It actually respects our right as well as
Lakshya, who's gonna promise regulation?
the
I don't
government,
think,
which we
yeah,
actually elect,
but
which we actually trust. That's why you have elected that
Lakshya,
government.
do you trust your government right now?
Yeah, I trust my government.
Again,
That's
there
why
are a
I've
lot
been.
of
You do
factors.
realize,
There are a lot of factors
that they are still.
that stem from that, because the government also has various branches that they are working with. It's not just the relationship that they share with the country, right? There are also a lot of international relationships that are present. And I also believe that the regulation should not be boiled down to it being on a personal level. it shouldn't just be regulation in the sense we are monitoring each and every individual person and their activities and what they are doing, who they're speaking to, what they're partaking in, where exactly they're going, constantly checking their location. It should exist in a way such that the nation is being directed towards something that enables in there being more of social welfare, something that benefits us all as a community rather than something that only benefits a singular person on a very personal level.
Okay, Shreya.
We should look at the community more than just it being something that, again, exists on a very singular base level.
Regulation needs to be take place. I mentioned it needs to be controlled. It needs to be on the basis of guidelines that are set on the basis of discussions that take place between all the affected parties. And that is all that I have to say regarding the matter.
So I actually don't think it should be regulated at all. I think technology should be free to be on itself. Like technology is meant to help mankind, and privatizing it isn't gonna help the people who are going to develop it. People are gonna developing on it. The people who want to make it perfect. But with such restriction, even controlled regulation, would there be growth? And even if there was growth, how controlled can it be? Like if it's controlled growth or development, like evolution doesn't take place like that. You have to be put in the extreme of the situation and only the best can come out. So if in restricting, if its safety is guaranteed, and if technology is privatized, yet the world crowded in technology, it's not safe. So I don't think it should be regulated.
Thank you, and thank you all the participants for the first group discussion. Now we will move on to the second group discussion. The topic had been released 10 minutes earlier. So all of you are aware of the topic.
Yes.
Technological growth is more important than social cohesion for the advancement of a nation. Let us begin this discussion. Would you please give the opening remarks, Sahil?
Yes, Vidyan. I would rather suggest that technology is contributing in our very much contributing in our economy, as we use our social apps such as YouTube, Instagram. They contribute a great amount in our GDP, as they can be considered more than as more than social cohesion. If they helps to increase our economy in various ways. They provide many jobs to many peoples, and if we consider social cohesion more than the technology development, that would rather be problem for many people. It would rather cause decrease in economy of the country. Or
I'd like to add on to my dear friend Sahil here. And I'd like to state the fact that technology can be regarded as the primary source in the economic development of a nation. It is because of technology that is helping the development of underdeveloped countries such as India. And also, I'd like to say that that technology has been evolving alongside humans, because if you see that the invention of fire or a wheel that changed the entire way a society functions right now. Everything that we do has the involvement of technology right now. And also, I'd like to state a fact here that the evolution of technology has allowed us to develop. And as far as the topic for today's group discussion is concerned, I also like to say that I'd like to give a scenario. In the earlier days, when we didn't have technology, when humans were more as hunters and gatherers, people had to choose. People were faced with an emotional question, with a very morally difficult choice. If they went out for hunting and one of their teammates got hurt, one of their friends got hurt, they had to be faced with the question that whether they should help that person or run for their own lives. It is because of technology that we are at a stage right now where we we have become the most dominant species on Earth. And I guess this is what has contributed to us developing a society along our sides. So would anyone else like to add on to what I said?
Yeah, so before I give my take on this topic, I would like to take a step a little back and discuss the topic itself. When we speak of the development of the nation, we think about a lot of aspects: economical, financial, political, infrastructure. All of these things come into picture, right? And technology, I feel, is something that has a foot in all of it. And like Akshat very perfectly stated, that technology is actually a problem solver. That's how it originated, and that's how it aids us. Technology solves problems in all of these fields. It solves problems for social fields, it solves problems for economic fields. Not denying the fact that, yes, in a lot of cases, it does create the problem, but even still, at its very root, technology is the problem solver. And a problem solver is obviously going to aid in the development of a nation. But another perspective to look at this is when we ask, is it more important than social cohesion itself? Social cohesion here meaning that communities having interaction with each other. Are we saying that these are mutually exhaustive? I don't think so. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. So why is technology something technology at the cost of social cohesion? No. I don't think that is something anyone here would agree with, because social cohesion is what gave birth to technology. People putting their brains together and being smart, and all of that coming together is aiding the development of any nation. It strengthens the any country, any developing nation, even social cohesion itself. So yeah, this is something I would like to divert the discussion towards: is which country are we talking about? What kind of development we're talking about?
Like to clarify on certain points from what Pranakshit has mentioned. Technology, yes, it does help in bringing people close, and it does help a lot in the development or in the growing of a person to an extent. Yes, but when it comes to the topic of this group discussion, which is social cohesion, how good is a country if the growth of the upcoming generations has been hindered because of how developed technology is right now? Because at we are at a point where technology has advanced to the level where people have completely relied on the technologies they have access to. Even small kids who will be growing up to working different jobs in the future, who will be running the economy in the next 30 years, if their abilities to interact with people socially, if their ability to interact with their own community has been hindered, how will they have the ability to go and communicate with other countries? For example, in the situation, if they were working for the government, or if they were working for building relationships or building communication with other countries. The most basic factor over here, if their grassroots have been hindered, how will this give them access to go and communicate with people outside their
I'd like
comfort
to
zone?
answer that.
I
I'd like
respectfully disagree with that, actually. Mostly because I agree with certain points, saying that at the very grassroots of a child's developing stages, if they are given technology, in a lot of cases, it's possible that they become incapable of physically interacting with each other, right? But in a lot of cases, technology is the one that pushes people and introverts forward. And technology is the one that connects community, that gives people the feeling of acceptance. And is that not what social cohesion really is? It's accepting
I
each other.
choose to disagree over
I'd
there
like to add on to what
because
Muskan said here, and I'd like to give you an example. Have you heard when the World War II was happening, the children that were studying in German schools were taught that the other Europeans, especially the Britishers and the allied countries, were actually like they were taught that they was monsters. The Jews were portrayed to the students as they were monsters and they should be captured and they should be thrown out of the country. They should be thrown into concentration camps. It's because of technology that the world has become a closer place now. Now there are different ideas that have been spreading throughout the throughout the world. And also children are taught in a different way. Children are taught to be more sensitive towards other human beings, towards other living beings. For example, children are taught using technology like cloud-based learning management system or virtual reality or augmented reality nowadays. So how do you think that counters to what you just said, that the children nowadays, technology is hindering the child's growth? How can you counter that?
Okay.
Adijan,
Akshat, I want
Adijan,
to
would
add
you like
that,
to
like,
add in something? Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, like you said that it hindered the children's life. So I want to ask that, like, we are here in the Teams group, although it's connected to us like we are today, but it is like a four under the roof only. How we will diversify our network? How will we grow our network? Like, if children know coding stuff in this very own child only, how will he learn to play with other kids in the garden area or any playing area? That is something like hindering the
I'd
child
like
child
to point
society, na?
that out, that the situation we are in
Okay,
is
Akshat, I'm
not
really
a
sorry to
usual
interrupt.
situation for technology in the coming 100 years or so. This is the cause of this situation is a global pandemic. And I'd like to give and I'd ask you, where are you from, my dear friend?
I'm from Rishikesh.
Okay, so you are from Rishikesh. I am from Noida. We
Okay.
are although we are Indians, but we have a different culture around here. We have different ideologies. We have different politics, suppose. And when we are interacting under the same roof, under the hood of technology, we are communicating with each other right now. We are sharing our ideas. We are debating about it right now. So that counters what you just said.
No, I am totally agree on that. But its overusage is also harmful, na? Like, if, like, today companies are cutting their cost for the physical classes very low, because like in our university also they have also are free, because in online mode there is not like something cutting their cost. That's also is also disadvantage of the online mode, na?
Agree with all of you, at least like to the most points of it. I do think that we're straying off the topic. Here we're talking about social cohesion and the development of a nation. We're putting it into perspective against social cohesion and development of a nation. What is social cohesion? It's being connected. It's being connectedness of it. So again, when you
I
compare
guess
to
what you're trying
entities
to
that
oppose here,
are
that you're going off the topic, but I guess that the social cohesion, when different cultures interact with each other, it's because of the way that they have been brought up. If you have been told from the start of your life that some particular group or some particular people, some particular culture is bad, you don't have to interact with them, because this has happened in the world, in history. So when people grow up to be a better person, they communicate better with each other, and hence the next generation forms the new society of the world. When we are more connected, we are more integrated towards each other. We hardly have there's a low chance of getting into a war.
Yes, Akshat, like we all
Okay,
know that we all
Webster.
played PUBG before. Okay. So like playing rather than outside, like football, cricket, and everything that grows our physical development. Like, rather we are going towards the PUBG, like sitting in the home
again,
in our
I
room.
think we're straying off the topic yet
Yeah,
again. It's
yeah.
not
No,
again whether you should play outside or whether you should sit at
no,
home
that's the
on a
social
computer.
unity only, na?
That
That's
no,
the social
that
unity only. There
Playing
are
the
two
topic
outside
we're
and
discussing is
sides
sitting at
of
social
social
home.
unity.
cohesion and the development of a nation. What you're just
Prashant,
trying
would you
to say
like to
that
add
people are
some?
going, people are playing more
Okay,
games.
so I'm gonna come up with a cliched Webster's definition. Cohesion is defined as the act or state of sticking together tightly. Now, if you want to try to attain this objective of sticking together tightly socially with a lot of other people through personalities created over technology or over the usage of the internet, I personally believe those kind of relations aren't very valid. There are exceptions. You can counter with exceptions,
I
yes,
guess I don't
but
counter you. I understand that it's your opinion. But I also like, I mean, adding to that is the whole cancel culture that we've all seen started on the social media, right? But also another side of that is, how LGBTQ and all these laws were passed because people were signing petitions and all of these things that started right off of technology. So I would say that technology, again, In this case, technology will have drawbacks and something that aids to social cohesion also. But the question is, if we had to choose between social cohesion and technology for the development of a nation, we would have to consider two things. One is, what kind of development are we talking about? Are we talking about the moral development of a nation, or are we talking about economical, financial, infrastructural development? So that's something that we should be discussing rather than whether a child should stay inside.
I feel that basically there's no choice that we have to do, because of technology we are getting closer, so we don't have to choose between picking up the advancement of technology or hampering the social cohesion in the society.
Again, Akshat, are you trying to say that we weren't close before? Are you trying to say that when there was no technology, there was no social cohesion? Because that is not true. Simply not true.
What are you trying to say here? Can you provide an example for that?
To say that technology is the one bringing us together, so technology is leading to social cohesion. I would disagree with a semantic error saying that technology aids to social cohesion, but social cohesion is one itself, on it together, with or without technology. Social cohesion will always be there because it's human nature to interact, whether it's online, whether it's in person, however. So
but basically due to sorry to interrupt, but basically due to increasement of technology, we are able to talk to different people from different places of India or something, so increasing our knowledge, getting social coins or something. This is due to only the technology. If technology increases, we are able to communicate with different peoples around the world. Okay, this is the point to Muskan.
True. With the help of technology, I am able to connect with a person who lives halfway across the world in probably the States or so. But when the factor of talking about the growth of a nation comes into play, how do we define the nation apart from the people? Because a nation is where the people stand, right? And if their growth is hindered, if their okay, obviously apart from technology, there are other factors that hinders the growth of a child. But coming to the topic for the day, because of technology, if their growth is hindered, how do all of you think it is possible for such people to lead the nation? Because if this is the case, I feel 30 years down the lane, there will be another debate with 6 other people over here talking if technology has helped us in the past 50 years or so.
Right, that makes
Why
complete sense.
should we come to that point is what I'm asking.
Very specific in nature, because right now we're considering technology only in terms of social cohesion. But when we see technology altogether, technology is helping in every field and not just connecting people. Technology is helping in economy, technology is helping in infrastructure, architecture, every single thing that helps the nation grow.
If
So
we're talking only about social media, I very much do agree with what you're saying. If it factors down to just social media or just devices that are distracting students, it does not weigh over social cohesion, which is a more physical and a more direct process. But technological growth as a whole does come into play. Is a major
I'd like to say that it is because of the ICT infrastructure that many small businesses and small entrepreneurships are getting larger and larger by the day. And that is helping our country to develop as a whole.
Right. Evidently, economic development is aided by technology, and there is no question. I don't think anyone would disagree. If you would, now is the time to. I don't think anyone disagrees that technology is economy of the nation or aids to the economic development, infrastructural development. I'm sorry for being repetitive. So what I'm trying to say is, again, when we talk about the development of the nation, we can either consider whether the future generation that's leading our nation forward is what we're concerned about, or is the infrastructure that we're setting up for them, is the problems that we're solving for them at this point in time is something that we're concerned about. What is our parameter for development is the question we should be asking when we're comparing these two aspects.
I personally think that there is no comparison. I still stand by what I said, that technology is the importance of technology in economic and social development altogether is massive. And the thing that technology is separating
Akshat,
societies is
do you agree?
hindering the
Do
social
you
cohesion.
agree?
I don't actually agree with that.
Akshat and Prashant, the time is about to get over. Let us, conclude this discussion and bring in our
Okay.
concluding remarks.
All
Right.
right. So I believe that if we say technological growth, if we are factoring it down to just social media, I do not believe that it weighs over social cohesion. It is an aid, just like Muskan said, but it does not create any higher barrier than physical interaction by itself. But if we are going towards technological growth as a whole, as in terms of infrastructure or other software or hardware related technologies that helps in the global economy, then yes, it is important. But then again, social cohesion is what makes all of this possible, rather than technology making social cohesion possible.
Right.
I'd like to end my remarks by stating that man is a curious nature. To quench his thirst of knowledge, he finds solutions to the existing problems. Humans have the evolution of humans that to the society that we to the organized society that we are in today happened because of the evolution of technology from the Stone Ages to the modern era.
Okay. To summarize my perspective on it, I do think that technology at the cost of social cohesion is not something I or any one of us would probably stand by. But technology as an aid to the development of a nation, definitely. Again, when we're talking about nations in today's day and age, most of these nations are already pretty social. Like as we go on, again, I can't speak for all nations, but most nations are on a very basic level, like they have already crossed the basic level of social cohesion, of communicating societies, right? Now it is upon our growth of the nation. If we were setting up a nation, the first thing we would think about is social cohesion. But again, when we're talking about the development, I think technology might take more of a stage for it just because we're in that stage of development.
Muskan,
So yeah,
even
adding
though
my point after concluding that it is right that technology is contributing to our economy, and you all can say nation very usefully. But my perspective is that only over usage of technology is very harmful, because it's on the basis of social cohesion, like unity only, that we have to maintain the fundamental of our living life has a fundamental. We must have to be on the track of that only.
Muskan, even those these platform provide are dominating, but it also provides a one who is getting some knowledge or something. This is my opinion. I will all. It's all
Okay,
providing ecosystem for.
so I guess the time is over, and it was a wonderful discussion. Now we will move on to the next discussion. The topic for this round is merits and demerits of cashless India. So I would like to invite Vinayak Joshi to moderate this discussion.
Hello, everyone. I'll be moderating this discussion, and Udayan has told us the topic. So, then, shall we start?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, then let's start with the discussion. So, one by one, from Anand, you can start talking for about 30 seconds on your stance. So, go on.
Okay, so you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to speak in the. I would say that cashless India. I think there are a lot of benefits when you come to that, because money. First thing, money can be tracked. Whatever is going, like if money is being transferred, we can track it. So that is one thing. Other than that, I think smartphone is something that everyone carries, and so it's more. I mean, I would like to put it this way: that it's more easy for people to transfer cash than keeping it in the wallet. So it reduces the identity. This identity theft is a problem, but then I would still say that theft of money can be.
Point, but my point is
using this cashless apps like Paytm and stuff leads to very serious cyber crimes and stuff. Like many accounts are getting hacking. So hacking and cyber theft challenges are challenging problems which can be caused by online transactions. So cybersecurity department should take steps to prevent all this money going into the wrong hands. And coming to the merits of cashless environment in the current situation is making everything is contactless, and printing cost of notes and maintenance itself is accounting of 27 billion rupees, which can be removed by the electronic payments, and there will be no paper currency, and it will reduce the pickpocketing and robbery of cash as well in the crowded locations. So the main thing which has to be focused on cashless economy in the near future is cybersecurity, because which has to be the major part, because it will safeguard all the amount money of the citizens. So as India is the second populated country and going to be populated by 2030, so many jobs will be created in the cybersecurity department for all this cashless economy, and it will help a lot. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. So I won't be disturbing you guys now. You can continue with the discussion and go on. Let's start.
Okay, to add up to the merits part of the cashless economy, taking in point of view the current situation where we have been at homes within these four walls because of COVID, people are refraining from being in contact with, be it cash, because it can act as a medium of you getting infected. So cashless economy has proven to be a very good escape from like paying at locations where you can just opt out for cashless ways. So that's what I wanted to add. But considering the demerits as well, because we need to discuss both of them, online transaction, if we do by mistake a wrong transaction, all we have is repent. We cannot undo the wrong, we cannot do the undo the thing which we have done. So which also consider, I according to me, is also a very big demerit. So if any of my friends would
like to add to that, because when you said it's repent, no, there are agencies that will help you get your transaction back. You know, there are guidelines for it. If you are able to tell your bank or the agency which you have used, they will help you get your transaction back. It might take some time, but there are possibilities that you will get it back, unless they have spent it. But then there are procedures, but I think you will get it back.
Okay,
So there is a possibility of it, but there's no certain saying that you'll actually get the money back. Say you spent a lot of money, so you're going to be losing on a lot. So that small possibility can actually be a risk for a lot of people.
Exactly. We all have heard the.
After listening to all of you guys, I would like to say that so like we are not see the country is not imposing the cashless economy on people, and we cannot just stay stagnated at where we are. We call India a developing country, and I would say that when there's a problem, there will be a need for a new solution. And like Yuvraj was saying, there are agencies, and even Tarun was saying, cybersecurity, more jobs will be created for that. And otherwise, also, we are not forcing anyone to use it. So it's a start, and I think it is bringing good change. So also there are demerits, but then that would only help other agencies and other companies to work on that, because like I said, there would be a need for need in the other sectors too.
I agree, because when doing that, they will form some sort of rules and regulations so that the person who has lost his money will get it back. Because only then they can improve. If this cashless was not even implemented, then there would be no chance of getting that kind of rules and regulations in mass. Only like 5 or 10 out of 100 people would have used it, they wouldn't be bothered to get the regulations, because none of them would have complained. There would be very less chances for it to happen. So, that's it.
Go on, guys. Why did you guys stop?
actually like to add to that point. One of the pros of having a cashless economy can also be that anyone transacting any kind of money to anyone can be held accountable for the transaction. So there's no, fraud happening, or there's no, I'm not sure how to put this, but anyone transacting the money to a certain person is accountable. So say there's a case of where you're illegally transacting the money, there is a record of how, there is someone who actually sent that money, and you can track that person down easily. However, right now India is still a developing country. It's not developed yet. It's not fully developed, be it technological wise or anything, even the population, be it literacy, education, anywhere. It's not completely developed, and I don't think it is completely equipped to handle this kind of economy where it's completely cashless.
Just Tarun has been raising his hand for a while, and I guess you made a point there, Gunika. So I'll just let him speak. Okay, go
I
on,
would like
Tarun.
to point for the cashless economy, it creates an economic inequality among the citizens. If you see, like, if the traditional payment style gets converted in the cashless system, we can see the chances of buying smartphone devices and stuff will become mandatory. In country like India, where a huge part of the citizens tries to arrange their daily food, buying a smartphone is definitely a luxury which not all can afford. If cashless purchase becomes a standard rule, then an inequality can be seen in the society because not everyone can afford it. So that's my point.
Yes, but we're
Okay,
not
so
discussing for
because
India to completely go cashless, right?
because the inequality exists, the market tries to equalize it. As now we guys can see that there's a whole variety of devices. So I don't think that really makes a difference. Other than that,
I agree
someone
with the point. I don't come in between of the
and I think someone made a point that cashless economy cannot be there in all sectors. So recently I had to apply for a PAN card and a driving license. I turned 18. So it was very easy for me to do it online, and I had to make certain payments, and I was able to do that. Otherwise, even if I have to pay my internet bill, I would be I would be going to the shop to do that. Now I can do that. And I feel that when you guys talk about cashless economy, I I think that's with everyone. We are very limited to just the apps we have on our phone. So initially, no one thought that everyone can actually have a credit card or a debit card and make a bank account. And that is how our country has evolved. And we guys have made a very prominent difference. So that is progress. That is progress. And I feel the part where many people said that our country education is a problem. Not many people are educated, and development still needs to be done. But I think we have made very good progress. So similarly, this is just another step that we are taking, and I would be
Cool.
very optimistic on this.
So, Anant, I would just like to stop you guys right now. Okay, your time is almost up. So, Yuvraj, you were saying something. How about you complete that, and then you guys just give your ending remarks, and take about 30 seconds each.
When the point came that India is developing and
Yuvraj,
everyone cannot use this.
please can increase your volume. I can't hear you.
Sure,
Now,
Yuvraj,
is it
increase
audible
your
now?
volume. Array, it's the end of debating. It's okay now.
If it's not audible, then I don't want to add it.
Okay, Yuvraj, you take care of your volume. Till then, Anant, you can put forward your point. And then Gunika, and then Yuvraj, you can just be last. Anant, you're mute.
So like I said, that it is being induced in other sectors too, and I think we can start. It helps. It makes things easy for us, and it is making things are getting easier for us, and I'm very sure that they will reach other people too, because like we have experiences from the past. Everyone can have a bank account. It's not mandatory that you need to have cash in it. So you might be poor, but you can have a bank account. I know that there will be a lot of thoughts that you would have on that, but still, I think that is still progress. I would be very optimistic on that.
Okay, so having heard that, I would like to conclude that cashless, when we are talking about this topic, we are talking on a national level. We cannot consider that you on a personal level feel comfortable doing all those cashless stuff online. we need to take and consider all the sectors belonging to our nation. And I feel that there is a little bit of more progress required before we switch to this cashless mode. A little bit of education sort of thing from our government. It should be an initiative of our government to first educate the people, the lower sector of our nation, about how to use it, being not caught into frauds and being not in the hands of hackers and all those stuff. And then after we establish a good cybersecurity network, then we can think of moving towards cashless economy for our country. That's all what I need to add.
Yes, since we're talking about both the merits and demerits of cashless India, I would say that yes, there are both positives and negatives, and certainly, like one of you said, um, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can. Go on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, like one of us said, it is definitely progress. People are making progress and it is going somewhere. But right now, we're not there. It's not feasible enough for us to take it. Like, let's say we just went off to some mountain and we want to buy a bottle of water. There's no signal. There's no signal to make a call. Where would we get the signal to make a transaction online? So right now, I think is not the right time, but maybe small baby steps will take us there someday.
Cool. Tarun, you made a point, right?
Pardon, please, because I have some network issues.
When Yuvraj, go on, and Tarun, tell if he's audible now.
He's on mute.
Okay, I guess we'll have to make him the presenter again, huh? Yeah. Go on, Yuvraj. Cool, let's just end it then. I guess he made his point a lot of times. So thank you very much for this. So this was the last debate, I guess.
Now I would like to invite Vinayak Joshi, Vice President, CSI, to propose the vote of thanks.
First of all, it was a very good event. ठीक है. I really liked it, matlab, completely. Although there were a few places where you could have added more points to it, but 10 minute की preparation से वो उतना, it's not that much possible. कुछ लोग तुम में से, few of you guys will be selected in the final round, and for you guys, I just have a simple advice. Just read a lot more about topics. Read a lot more in general. For example, recently there was an article by the print, and you could have used that in the last GT. It was about how black economy is actually very, very important for a society to function. So that would have just changed the path of the discussion and would have made it much better. But again, seeing the fact that this is your second month in college, and so far you're doing very good. So good job, guys. Good job, the committee which conducted this. This was done by all the juniors in CSI. We gave them free command to do anything they want to do. And apart from that, I would really like to thank the judges. They are very busy people, and thank you very much, guys, for giving us time, and thank you very much for being here. And also the contestants, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much, Ojaswa, for wearing a tie, making it look formal. And good job, Uday, and good job, Dhruv, everyone, Altamash. So it was a great event. Let's hope there are more events like this, and there will be another debate which will be for everyone here in the campus. तो उसमें please सब लोग participate करना. It will be something really good. Even I'll be a participant there. I'll just like to sum it up in one sentence. I believe it was so good. I wanted to jump in at times. just jump in and contradict maybe Akshat or someone else. So thank you guys. Thank you very much for this event. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much, judges. And yeah, that's it.
I would now like to conclude today's session by quoting Joseph Joubert. It is better to debate a question without settling it than to settle a question without debating it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today, and have a great day ahead.